Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to High Top Sports Georgia. Got JT back with us this week, going over some SEC games. Seems the theme the last month or so. SEC having all the big games. Outside of the SEC, there's not much this weekend other than that Oregon-Illinois game. So me and JT will get into it all, give our picks, disagreements on some of these games. But first, let's do a little bit of cleanup from last weekend. Both of us got some big wins, showing some SEC East dominance. How about that? Something we're not used to over the past decade. So, hey, JT, give us your thoughts after that great win, wild game in Knoxville this weekend.
Yeah, this was a game Tennessee, after that Florida game, they showed up and really showed some resilience in this game. Beginning of the game, I was at the game and I was sitting there kind of in that first half like, how are we not down 28-0 right now? I was thinking the fact at halftime I walked out, went to the bathroom, got a drink, and I'm sitting there thinking like the fact that we're only down 7-0, we got a chance in this game. So I just knew the offense had to come out and kind of figure it out. They were kind of sputtering there. Obviously had the scare with Nico going down and Gaston coming and hurling one up. I gotta respect it, but
that's Hypo 101 there.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to come in, you might as well just take the shot, right? And so, honestly, that pick by Jermon McCoy, who's been just unbelievable this year. The guy's been incredible. Probably, in my opinion, at least, the best corner in the SEC up to this point. Can't throw against him. I think he's Pro Football Focus' top-rated corner at this point in the season. But that pick was huge for us. And then, like I said, going into halftime down 7-0, I kind of had some hope. And then we come out and kind of just put some plays together. I think Dylan Sampson got rolling, who's obviously been our best player all year. The guy's been incredible, leading the SEC in touchdowns, and we've leaned on him heavily. And that defense for us has been huge. There's no doubt about it. That defensive line, that front seven is incredible, and James Pierce has really started to come out. And I think he's, as far as pressure rate goes, it's him and then everybody else under him. The guy's been incredible ever since he's gotten SEC play. So once we started making some plays there in the second half, obviously Nico with the big run on that drive, on our first touchdown drive, and then we handed off to Dylan Sampson to go score was huge. And I think we got some momentum there, and hopefully we can carry that over here the next few weeks. But that play at the end of the game, I was sitting down in the end zone and Brazel lines up in the slot, and I'm sitting there. I was like, fade ball. Here we go. Fade ball. He throws it up, makes a great catch, and the place was just going nuts. So all those accusations this week about Tennessee pumping crowd noise in, I promise you, we aren't pumping any crowd noise into that place. That place was insane the last two drives.
Absolutely. I mean, it looked like a great atmosphere. And again, I'm a Georgia fan, and I've been to Knoxville a couple times, and it is loud. I'll give it to him. Had a couple times in front of that student section. It's loud, and it looked like that definitely helped him out in the second half. Maybe even kept him in the game in the first half with some of those turnovers.
Yeah, I really think Milrow was struggling. He was at the line of scrimmage. He was really struggling to get the play call to his offensive lineman. If you looked at it, he was having to go up to each and every one of them, try to get that play call. So,
yeah. And, as thinking back to that Georgia-Alabama game, it was very similar with Georgia-Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee played similar to Georgia, like first half-wise. The difference, Alabama wasn't able to capitalize. They've just been a different team since that game in Tuscaloosa earlier this week. And to your point, they dominated the line of scrimmage in the second half for sure.
Of course, this show is brought to you by BetUS. And when you use the code YouTube150 at betus.com on your first deposit, you get back 150%, up to $2,000. Now, you can gamble on NFL, college football, basketball, baseball. The World Series are coming up. We got college football at an all-time high. Heisman winners are going back and forth. Who's going to the SEC? Who's going to the Big 12? All kinds of things. You can literally gamble on anything you set your pretty little mind to. And on your second and third deposit, you get back 125%, up to $2,000. So be sure to go check out betus.com. Use the code YouTube150 to take advantage of these offers while they still last. Now back to the show.
Made that pocket a lot smaller for Jalen Milrow. So something to look at. Again, as a Georgia fan, I was talking with one of my buddies here. I was like, yeah, I'm sure these Tennessee fans were very happy after this game for about 30 minutes. Clicked on Georgia's like, oh, man, Georgia's real again. I was making a joke. I was like, well, they're probably doing the math here. If Alabama beat Georgia, we beat Alabama. This game in Athens is going to be a hell of a match. And I agree. I think it will be a good game. But even me, I was surprised with that Georgia Texas how that was going early on. So I'm sure Tennessee fans were, what's the word, confused or a little bit of a letdown. Am I right, JT? Was that kind of a thought process with Tennessee fans? Kind of like, okay, I mean, we beat Alabama. We got a shot in Athens here at the end of the month.
Maybe in some aspects, I'm a little bit more realistic in that nature. I've grown up in Georgia and grown up around Georgia fans my whole life, and so for me, I think at least the way I looked at it, I kind of got to the game a little late since I couldn't watch. I wasn't able to see the start of it after the Tennessee game, but I was kind of happy to see it, to be honest with you. And I was telling people all week, like, Kirby Smart as an underdog is not a good thing for a lot of people. I saw it firsthand in 2022 in Athens when Tennessee was ranked number 1 and going up there, and media gave Georgia all the ammo they needed to go into that game and beat us pretty good. So I kind of already had it in my mind that this is not a good spot for Texas. I've seen it before, and so for me it was kind of, I wasn't too shocked, to be honest with you. I kind of saw it as, bring Texas back down to earth, even the playing field here a little bit, and everybody's back on the same plane here for the SEC. So you look at the top, you got Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, and those seem to be the top 3 battling it out for those 2 spots. So honestly, this Georgia-Tennessee game in a few weeks is huge. You kind of mark it as a semifinal for what's going to happen as far as who's going to go to that SEC championship.
100%. I was just going to say that. Definitely a semifinal game. Maybe throw LSU in there as well. They don't have a SEC loss. Actually, them or Texas A&M. One of them will get a loss, obviously, this weekend. But I agree. I do think those are probably the 3 best teams. I would add LSU. I would say there's 4 teams at the top. But yeah, definitely going to be a showdown here at the end of November. But you're right. I mean, with the media, they're going to learn at some point that, Georgia, they're not going to be, a rolling ball of chainsaws like they were in 2021, just beating everyone 50 points. I mean, that's not realistic every year. And some Georgia fans are, you mentioned unrealistic Tennessee fans. There's unrealistic fans at every school. Georgia, they're like, oh, well, we're not beating everybody 40-0. There's a serious problem in Athens. Like, guys, calm down. I kept on kind of pointing to that Clemson game to, that Georgia has it in them, right, to play big and big games. So great to see, that defensive line showed out. Love to see more consistency throughout the rest of the year. We can't just have it in, spurts, like we've really only seen it against Texas like that. So I would love to see more consistency out of Georgia, but obviously love to see him win that game with a chip on the shoulder with the SEC refs trying to throw the game, changing calls. I mean, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I had to mute the game in the 3rd quarter until Georgia scored another touchdown. I was just so upset. I was like, this is really how they're going to do us. They're really going to let Texas come back in this game. But hey, Carson Beck made a couple big throws towards the end of that game to kind of salt it away. Didn't play great, but he made the plays he needed to. So both Georgia and Tennessee definitely have some things to work on. Got some time to get right before they show down. So with that being said, let's get into this week's slate. Starting off, we just mentioned LSU. Them and Texas A&M this Saturday night. LSU plays a freaking night game every week. It's unbelievable. And
that time of year, right?
It's always a 1-score game, weirdest game ever. So I expect that to happen this week. So JT, what's your initial thoughts about this game in College Station?
My initial thought is, which Connor Wegman is going to show up to this game? I think you look at this game and the spread is a little bit interesting to me. I think Texas A&M opened as a 3-point favorite in this one. It's kind of worked its way down to 1. I think a lot of people are on LSU and probably thinking that spread is a little generous as far as them being underdogs in this game. But if you go back a few weeks and you watch that Missouri game, same type of situation. I think a lot of people had written Texas A&M off at that point. Missouri's coming in. Pretty sure they're undefeated at that point still. And you look at that spread and you're like, oh, Texas A&M -2.5. What's the situation here? Why is it at this line? Texas A&M's not really been that impressive to this point. And Connor Wegman comes out and balls, and they just were unstoppable. So I think the big thing in this game, for me at least, is which Connor Wegman is going to show up. If he has a good game, this game could be very close. I think Texas A&M is a lot better than people give him credit for, especially when he plays well. They can run the football, and playing a College Station at night, not an easy task. So, and then on the LSU side, here we are again. Brian Kelly, big game, needs another win, going on the road at Texas A&M at night. Can that defense step up and cause havoc for this Texas A&M offense? They've been great for this past, 3-4 weeks. That defensive line, I said it last week, that front seven has been dominant, and I think for them to continue to keep it rolling, they're going to have to carry this football team and into Texas A&M this weekend. So yeah, that's the big one for me, Wegman.
Yeah, that's kind of the story with a lot of SEC teams, is just inconsistency. A lot of inconsistency with the quarterbacks, especially. I mean, that first game against Notre Dame was so ugly to watch. He was terrible. I mean, I could not believe that they walked him out there for that game. And then, that backup looked good for a couple weeks. They beat Florida by a lot. So Texas A&M is a little bit of a mystery. I think it's weird to say, but LSU over the past, ever since that USC game, has been one of the more consistent teams in the SEC. Their defense is consistent, not allowing, 40, 50 points against the other team like they have in previous years. I think we mentioned it a little bit. I mean, Jaden Daniels is probably kicking himself watching. I mean, if he had half of this defense this year, they would have been tough to beat. But yeah, that's the story for me. I mean, is the LSU consistency. I mean, they're not making the big mistakes. They're winning these close games. With Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. In the past, Brian Kelly has kind of struggled a little bit in one-score games that you probably should win. So I think he's kind of heard the noise. Garrett Nussmeier's playing great. I really am loving this LSU team, the way they're trending. They got a good quarterback that can make some noise in the playoffs. They played in a lot of close games. So that experience is going to be handy as the season unfolds. But I love LSU in this spot. I think if this was an LSU team like previous years, they would have lost against Arkansas last week. I mean, it was a close game there, and they made just enough plays to win. So that was the test for me. And I think Texas A&M is kind of going to get brought down to earth a little bit. They haven't played much since that Notre Dame game. Obviously, they beat Missouri by a ton, but as we're seeing, Missouri just had trouble beating Auburn. So they're not too good. I expect LSU, facing more competition thus far this year, to stick it to them a little bit. I really do. I think they're going to hit them in the mouth early, get out to a big lead, and let that defense work for them. JT, what's your pick in this game?
I like Texas A&M in this one. I look at that spread, and again, a couple weeks ago, I had taken Texas A&M to beat Missouri in that game, and I'm kind of looking at this one the same way. I think Vegas has an idea of what's going on here, but I also, I think Texas A&M's defense in their secondary is really good. I think this game is going to come down to who can run the football the best and who's going to stick to running the football. And then, like I said, Connor Wegman, that pass game's been pretty good ever since that Missouri game. And so if he can keep it rolling, I think they got a great shot, especially at home and at night here. I think this is the Aggie fans are going to come out strong. So that place is going to be rocking. They're going to have a great home field advantage. And I think as long as they can maybe make a play on defense, create a turnover, and put that LSU pass rush at bay, I think they got a great shot to win this game.
Yeah, we will see. Mike Elko, this is his second big test in a big game. Failed miserably on the first one. I think he'll fail miserably here, but we shall see. Really, last point on this game is this is we mentioned kind of a semifinal with Georgia, Tennessee. This is similar. I mean, none of them have a loss. The winner of this game is really in a great spot for the rest of the year. I think both of them played Texas A&M last week. But still, winner of this game is looking pretty with 0 losses in the SEC. Yeah. Next, do you have one more thing?
Just one more point. I think LSU, for them at least, I think they definitely have to win this game. They have Alabama coming in a couple weeks. So, Alabama's going to want to come out and make a statement in that game, especially coming off a loss against Tennessee. That's their next big game on the schedule. So I think for LSU, this game's massive. They got to win this one, or it kind of puts them behind the 8 ball for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Good segue there. Going to get into Bama this week, going against Missouri at home. Can't take Missouri lightly, even though they've not looked great. Brady Cook has been, out with injury, went to the hospital, came back. I mean, that's impressive. I would love a guy like that in my locker room. Anyway, if he plays this game, I really like Missouri's chances. There's no pressure on them. All of the pressure in the world is on Bama. Kellen DeBoer, heard a bunch of noise about his post-game speeches after a loss not being too motivating. So the microscope is definitely zeroed in on Bryant-Denny Stadium this weekend. And I've been a critic all year, I know, but I don't think Kellen DeBoer can withstand this pressure. I really don't. I mean, we've seen it, his confidence just with his press conferences throughout the year has gone down, down, down. We talked about him wearing polos because of the Bama fans yelling at him. I just think this could be a spot where everything unravels for Alabama, especially with them being 18-point favorites last time I looked. They're expected to win this game comfortably. Milroe has not looked good over the last couple weeks. In order to cover that spread, he's going to have to play great. Missouri's defense is no slouch. So this is going to be an interesting game. I love Missouri in this spot. Plus 18, they have one loss. It's just way too many points to an Alabama team that cannot stop shooting themselves in the foot, turnovers, can't take advantage of good field position. Like you're saying, they should have been up in that Tennessee game, 21-0 probably. And them not being able to capitalize on turnovers has kept a lot of teams in games. South Carolina, they should have put them away at home a couple weeks ago. And until they prove me different or prove otherwise, they are still an inconsistent team like so many other teams. And I think the pressure gets to them. I think, Brady Cook is a big piece in this. I know, and he's doubtful to play. But regardless, I still think that Alabama offense can, has shown us that they can keep other teams that aren't as talented in games just with their mistakes, flags, everything. So I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think. I do not think Alabama should overlook this game at all because, everything's done if they lose this game. So I like the Tigers. What's your thoughts, JT?
Yeah, what do you think Kalen DeBoer's thinking going in this game?
I think he hasn't slept probably since Saturday night. I think he's looking at the MAC, who's looking good, what coach might be going to Power 4. I think he's as scared as can be.
The pressure's on. I think
they lose this game. We'll be seeing those real estate, for sale signs in his front lawn on Monday. I guarantee it.
Yeah, he's going to want to find a somewhere else to live for a little while if they lose this one. I think the big thing in this game is does Brady Cook play, which I'm sure he's fighting for it, knowing watching him last week come back from the hospital and playing that game. And then Nate Noel, they're starting running back. I think that's a big question mark. From what I understand, saw earlier in the week, it looked like he was probably not going to play, which would be a huge loss for them. He's been really good for them. I think for Alabama, I think you put it perfect. This team is good. They have a ton of talent. They got guys all over the field, but the tag you can kind of put on them up to this point in the season is they are an extremely undisciplined football team. You kind of, for me at least, the big thing and the one that stood out to me was the end of the Vanderbilt game. Malachi Moore kicking the football, throwing a fit. That doesn't happen under Nick Saban. You do that under Nick Saban, you're off the team. You're definitely at least, bottom of the depth chart. You're going to fight your way back up to earn his respect and earn his trust again. But just like you said, they continue to shoot themselves in the foot. They jump out to a huge lead against Georgia, a game everybody thought was over, and they take their foot off the gas pedal. Georgia comes right back, makes that a game, and at the end of the game, Ryan Williams makes a great play, and they score on that to win it. But honestly, they were giving that game away. They had no right to win that game at that point. And then last week, you look at the Tennessee game, they had opportunities in the first half to really take that game over and put it away. Nico gave them plenty of chances. Tennessee turned the ball over multiple times in that first half and gave them great starting field position, and they couldn't capitalize. And I think that's kind of an indictment on DeBoer and how he's coaching this team and how he's kind of let them go off the rails a little bit from what they're used to. I think there's a certain level of discipline you have to instill, especially you can see it. I think that Malachi Moore play translates to what we are seeing now with this team and the mistakes they're making, the inability to capitalize on great opportunities. And, especially at that end of the game last week, they just seemed like they kind of gave up, it didn't seem like they had much hope. And so, I watched those last two drives and they couldn't really do anything at all. So for me, that's the big one is this team's good, but they are undisciplined and it's starting to really show itself here recently. At the end of the day, I do like Alabama in this game. I think they bounce back, especially if Cook and Noel don't play. I think that puts Missouri in a horrible spot, and I'd be interested to see once they're actually ruled out what that spread goes up to. I assume it's going to be over 21 points at least, but I think Alabama does bounce back in this game just because I haven't been very impressed with Missouri. Struggled against Boston College, really struggled against Texas A&M, didn't look good against Auburn. I just think they're a team that's was a little bit overrated coming into the year, and they've struggled and it's shown. So for me, I do like Alabama in this game to cover. I think they'll bounce back. I think Jalen Milroe is going to have a good game, and they're going to dominate this game.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that old Alabama teams definitely would in this spot win 40-0 for sure. And just to your point, it's really been, I know people say first half of Georgia, but it was 12 minutes in the second quarter left when they were up 28-0. Ever since that time, they have looked night and day difference. I mentioned it right after that game. I saw it with my own eyes. They used, Alabama voodoo mind tricks. They used all of it up in that game. And now they're all out. And now they're having to play on a level playing field, and they can't compete, especially with Kellen DeBoer pissing down his leg half the time. So, again, more of me is hoping this to happen. I would love to see just a catastrophic downfall of Alabama this year. But, if they win out, somehow make it to an SEC championship game against Georgia, I'll love that as well. But they just haven't proven it to me ever since. To me, it's more and more looking like that first quarter was, I don't want to say luck, but they just out-schemed us for a little bit. And ever since then, they've shown that they're just like everybody else, middle of the pack. So it's going to be interesting to see what Alabama team shows up. I'm on Missouri. JT is on Bama. Any last thoughts before we head into our last game, JT, about that?
No, I think the big thing for Missouri in this one to cover is they just got to keep it simple, man. I think
feed Luther Burden.
Yep. Even if I think you got to play defense and run the ball, keep the ball out of Milroe's hands, and just try to keep it as close as possible. If you can get it into the second half, fourth quarter, a game, you got a shot. Especially, we've seen that Alabama's not a second half football team up to this point. So I think you keep it close going in the second half. I think that one becomes it gets a little dicey for them at that point.
The groans in the stadium will get louder and louder as this game stays close. So, if this game is a fourth quarter game, I love Missouri even more with the pressure. So lastly, we are going to head to Nashville. I cannot believe we're covering a Vanderbilt game as one of the big games, but hey, this is where we're at in 2024. Pavia has, rebranded Vanderbilt overnight, and Texas going to Nashville after that loss. See, this is where I think there's a little bit of a difference. This is the difference between Bama and Texas. I think Texas has the leadership, the culture in place to rebound. I mean, they were kind of just shell-shocked, I think, in the beginning of that game. They listened to the noise like, oh, yeah, we are better than everyone. Look, we beat everyone by 40, and, in the first couple minutes, they realized that was not the case. But they rebounded, played good in the second half, better in the second half, I should say, to make it more of a game. So I just have more faith in the foundation of Texas program, Steve Sarkisian. I think they rebound and really put it on them this week. I just think back to that Clemson game. I mean, this is a very similar spot. Georgia dominates Clemson. They kind of hung in for the first half. And Clemson, to this day, JT, has not – or I don't know how to They have not covered a spread. They've covered every spread. They're scoring 48 points a game. They're a wagon. I mean, they are. And now people are talking about them as a college football sleeper. Maybe that's just what teams need to do, JT, is play Georgia first game of the year out of conference, get that loss under their belt. And it seemed to work out for some teams. Oregon
get it out of the way.
Ago.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just get it out of the way.
But, yeah, I think Texas comes back in this game, and Quinn Ewers plays a lot better. Who knows? Might see Arch Manning. I think both of them might get some action here. And I think Vandy's brought down to earth a little bit. The talent gap is just so wide. I don't want to, talk like the media pundits I criticized last week, but, the gap here is a lot more than, Georgia, Texas. And I think the athletes show out here and Texas wins comfortably.
Yeah. The funny thing with Vandy is they played everybody close this year. Even their loss to Georgia State. I mean, it was a close game. I think, you look at that one, you're like, all right, typical Vandy, lost to Georgia State. This is going to be a long season. They've continued to get better every week, it seems like. They got a lot of fight. I think Pavi's a great leader in that locker room, and he's changed, like you said, he's changed the culture in that locker room into, there's belief in that locker room now. It's not just every game, taking on that identity of being Vanderbilt, the redheaded stepchild in Tennessee, like nobody's really paying attention to them. And they've kind of flipped that narrative. And I think with it being at home, at least for me, it gives them a good chance to at least keep it close. What's interesting to me was last week, I feel like Texas is getting in this area where Sark is like, all right, well, if Quinn Ewers struggles, I'm just going to yank him and put Arch in it. And what'd he do? He did it for two series last week.
I think it was just one. Just one,
And
he got a strip sack.
What was the point of that one? Ewers are struggling. I guess you want to maybe try to find something else.
I thought he was, I thought we were going to go back to a Jalen Hurts Tua situation. I was very worried. I was like, all right, Arch is going to come in. My dad was telling me about it this week. He's like, well, what if they put Arch in? He can run. That's what gives Georgia issues. So once they came in, he had like a 30-yard run. But I think it was really just to kind of wake Quinn Ewers up. It sounds like that they would have went with Quinn after halftime. Now, I mean, if Manning scores a touchdown there on that drive, I don't know. But, I think it was just to mix up, give him a different look.
Yeah, I don't know. My perspective is, it feels like they're kind of moving into this space where they think they have two quarterbacks. And the old saying goes, if you got two quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks. So I think, that's going to hurt your starter's confidence. Quinn Ewers is looking behind him constantly now, scared to make a mistake, maybe scared to take those risks he was taking before. It plays a role. So I'm going to be interested to see how that kind of plays out in this game. To your point, I think Texas is going to win this game. What's the spread? Is it 18 and a half? That's a lot of points. It's a lot of points.
It's about what Bama was.
Yeah, I do like Vandy in this game. I do think they're going to keep it close. This is a big bounce back spot for Texas. I think they got to come out and really prove that loss to Georgia is not going to affect them in any way. Kind of fight through this adversity a little bit and show people that, hey, we had a bad game. We're going to come back. We're going to look like the same old Texas. Or they come out and they come out flat and with not as motivated. And I think that's going to look bad on them, and it's going to take an effect on them the rest of the year. So I think for them, they got to come out strong. They got to come out fast. And if they're going to cover this spread, I think they got to dominate there in the first quarter and kind of prove it right out the gates.
I agree. You mentioning two quarterbacks, not really having a quarterback at all. Quinn Ewers, if you really think about it, I mean, I know he's been hurt, but he's looked different this year. He's looked not as good. Maybe there's something else going on health-wise that we don't know about, but he's never been crazy mobile. But even in that Georgia game, he just, I don't know if you saw, Jalen Walker had a sack at the goal line where he was just like under Quinn Ewers, like didn't even like know where Quinn Ewers was, and Quinn Ewers just kind of fell down. Like he looked like Peyton Manning at 40. Like he just could not move around too well. So, maybe there is something more going on that we don't know about. And this would be the game that we find out. I mean, if he struggles early, we've seen Sark will put Manning in. So this is a big game for Quinn Ewers, I believe. I think he'll be fine. Vanderbilt, really made their bread this year with Diego Pavia and their offense. Defense is not terrible like they always are, but I still expect Quinn Ewers to, maybe find himself a little bit more this game, solidify that starting role. But you raise a good point with that quick switch. Maybe if there is something going on, I'm on Texas. JT is on Vandy. Now, getting into our locker up segment this week. Last week, I think we each won. I won one. I think I had LSU.
I wasn't close. I think.
Oh yeah, you had
Nebraska lost by like 50, didn't they? I didn't get to see the score, but I walked up to Will Compton at a tailgate and told him it was 28-6, and I don't think it got any better from there. I looked back down probably about 30 minutes later, and all of a sudden it was 49-6. So
yeah. Indiana, they may be a wagon. We'll report back after they play Ohio State in a couple weeks.
You think Bama's kind of regretting not looking at Cignetti a little harder?
Probably so. I mean, that guy, I love his demeanor. I love it. They're up 40. Did you see him? Just no emotion at all. Expected it to happen. So we'll report back on Indiana. We got to see a little bit more. But that was an impressive win. Me and JT are both 1-1. With our locker up picks this week. JT, you got one? You want to start us off?
You go ahead and start us off here real quick. Okay. I'm doing a little research here to start. I'm locked into a couple games here.
Okay. Well, I was torn. I want to take LSU again. I'm very torn between that and Penn State, believe it or not, against Wisconsin. Wisconsin, we're going to go there. We're going to go Penn State -6.5 against Wisconsin Saturday night. Wisconsin, terrible. They lost to Bama by 20 points at home. Bama hasn't looked good. Wisconsin, they're a little bit evolved from the old days where, Melvin Gordon, fullback, running down the middle, toss sweep every play. They're a little bit more evolved, but their offense is still trying to find itself. I mean, it's different than the old school Wisconsin offense, but it's still not, found its rhythm with Luke Fickell, right? Yeah, their coach. So I expect Penn State to come in there and really take care of business, hit them in the mouth early, win by 2 to 3 scores. I don't think this game is close at all. Penn State really proved something to me of that USC game. That USC win is, I know, not aging as well as Penn State fans would have liked. But, they regardless of that, they came back in a game on the road, made some big plays, got some big stops on defense, and that is something over the last couple of years that they haven't done. They don't win games on the road when they're not supposed to. They're kind of in the same category as LSU for me. It's not same old Penn State, not same old LSU. And I think Penn State really handles business and solidifies their spot, as a top 4 team, upper echelon team, with Georgia, Texas, and, some of the best teams. I think they really take a step and prove everybody this week that they are for real. So I got Penn State -6.5.
I'm going to go to where game day's at this week. Bloomington, Indiana. We're going to go to Indiana, Washington. 6-point spread, Indiana -6, over under 54.5. I know that Indiana's quarterback is currently questionable, so we could have a Taven Jackson sighting. And for me, that raised a little question around this total of 54.5. I'm looking at the under 54.5 in this game. I think Indiana's got a great defense. I think that they're going to have to lean on him, especially if Rourke is out. I think you got to lean on him, run the football, and I don't believe Washington is a very good football team at all. Haven't really impressed me to this point in the season. I think, when you look at this game, it's going to be sloppy, especially if Rourke is out. And I think Indiana will, mostly dominate this football game. Obviously, I haven't been able to watch a lot of Taven Jackson, so I'd be interested to see, how he comes out if he is indeed the starter and what the game plan is going to be around him. For me, at least, I know I'd look to run the football and lean on that defense, especially how they played last week against Nebraska and how they just dominated that team and dominated Dylan Raiola for pretty much that whole game. So yeah, I'm going to go 54.5 in a sloppy football game. I think it's under 54.5. Maybe looking at like 23-17. I think that could be the range here. So
I like that close game. Little nervousness for the Indiana faithful, huh?
Yeah. Like I said, it depends on if Rourke plays. If their starter's playing, then I think it's a completely different
It
game.
is a letdown spot. So I mean, I kind of agree with that line of thinking.
Yeah.
They
exactly.
won. They proved their point last week. Backup quarterback, slower start. I like that. I think this week, this SEC preview is going to finally go 2-0 on the Locker Up segment. Love Penn State. I do like that. Indiana under. We will report back next week. But final thoughts. I mean, we got a break this week, JT. We got a little break. Watch some action around the league. Sit back. No butt clenches this Saturday night. So yeah, we'll be seeing who the other contenders are, and we'll be back to you next week. Thanks again for another good week of High Top Sports Georgia. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Y'all have a good one. Go Dogs.
Go GBO.